Hello, 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 everybody. Good evening. Welcome into the show. Let's go ahead and get it started. And welcome in, everybody, to the Last Row Podcast, a fan's perspective on sports. It's Brian here inside the ARM Media Solutions Studios on this Monday, June the 15th, 2026. Hope you're happy, hope you're healthy, wherever it is you may be listening, whether that is on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Thank you so much for being part of the show, for your continued support. If you're new, welcome to the program. We greatly appreciate you joining us. Make sure you follow us online. You can do so at X, at Last Row Podcast. We are on X Live currently as well, at Last Row Podcast. You can also check us out on YouTube and or YouTube Live at Last Row Podcast. Make sure you check us out as well on TikTok at last.row.podcast. If you are on TikTok, good evening and welcome in. We are once again being told that we are getting restricted, which I'm not sure why, but whatever. We'll continue on and press on as we always do. All right, so let's go ahead and let's just get things moving here, and let's get things happening where we need to. Let's talk about it. We kind of hinted at it last night, and we are once again leading off the show with breaking news, because breaking news changes everything. And I will just tell you this. There's two big stories that are happening, okay? Two big stories. Christian, good evening. MVB, good evening. Robert, good evening. Arturo, Steven, BJP&P, good evening. Welcome into the show. Welcome in, everybody. If you're new with us, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate each and every one of you being part of the show. All right, let's talk here. So, breaking news right as we were coming onto the air tonight. Out of the NCAA, the supplemental draft, Brendan Sorsby plans to enter the NFL's supplemental draft. And it's not a bad move by him. He will not play for Texas Tech this upcoming fall, and he's entering the supplemental draft. Sorsby's decision comes amid legal wrangling over the NCAA eligibility after he admitted to betting on college sports and having a gambling problem. Sorsby was granted a temporary injunction against the NCAA that cleared the path for him to play for Texas Tech in 2026, even after he was already declared ineligible. This is per ESPN. Cody Campbell, chairman of the Texas Tech Board of Regents, quote, Texas Tech will not seek the return of any money paid to Sorsby through his NIL agreement with the university. He also noted, the bottom line is that Texas Tech did absolutely nothing but act with complete integrity through the entire process. Sorsby, who admitted betting on college football, placed more than 9,000 bets, totaling at least $90,000 over 3 years at Indiana, Cincinnati, and Texas Tech, including at least 40 wagers involving his team. That's just insane to me. I'm just going to be honest. That is absolutely crazy to me. It is absolutely insane that he has not faced any type of criminal injunction regarding this. But because sports betting is become now a part of our lexicon, of our everyday, for lack of a better term, life, he is absolutely within his element to do so. The NCAA has not seen evidence that Sorsby manipulated his performance, used insider information to make his wagers, or shared privileged information with bettors, according to the documents. Quote, Sorsby said in a statement Monday, "I am grateful for the support from my family, my tech coaching staff, teammates, community, and so many others who have encouraged me to address and learn about this important issue. As my journey continues, I remain fully committed to and focused on being the best I can be, both on and off the field." Now look, we can say what we want here about everything with Sorsby, but if the young man does truly have a gambling addiction, that's a major thing. That's a major problem. There are people that spend their entire life fortune and blowing it on games. And it's a serious addiction. I can tell you that. And as pulling back the curtain here, okay, as somebody that has battled addiction, not that addiction necessarily, but once it's got its hold on you, you're done. Once it's got its grasp and you think you have it controlled, you don't. And Sorsby has been, adamant about undergoing treatment. And he's required to continue to do so per the Honorable Ken Curry's ruling. He could have played for Texas Tech after sitting out the first 2 games of the season, but the injunction now sparked calls to boycott games with Texas Tech, including from the Big Ten. The Big Ten is still in conversation to void any games that they may have, and to either forfeit and or not play them, cancel the games. That's when you know things are bad, is when you have other, for lack of a better term, when you have other conferences that don't want to play you because of a ruling that they deem is detrimental to the development of said programs. And quite honestly, when you have a player that's breaking the rules like that, yeah. Reagan, good evening. Reagan says Tech should have seen resistance to reinstating him and told him to not come back. Yeah, and I agree with you. And Texas Tech, look, they said that Texas Tech President Lawrence Chavanik and Athletic Director Kirby Hocutt said in a joint statement Monday, when Brendan's lawsuit resulted in the granting of a temporary injunction, we found ourselves in a difficult situation. With his health and wellness as our top priority, we supported him in spite of very different perspectives and opinions. Our position was challenged by many, but our support never changed. We will continue to extend all available resources that Brendan had as a student and athlete to ensure his transition is as successful as possible. So, the supplemental draft for the NFL will take place. And it allows, it's essentially, I can't talk tonight, a secondary draft, if you will, that allows players to, who had their eligibility impacted to be drafted. And the NFL declined to comment to ESPN on Sorsby on Sorsby's expected application. The league currently does not have a supplemental draft scheduled, which isn't unusual. It normally holds the supplemental draft only when approved prospects are available, but it hasn't happened since 2023. And the last time a player was selected during said draft was in 2019. So the odds aren't very good that he's going to be selected to play in the NFL. Now, could he sign as potentially an undrafted free agent? Sure. Absolutely, he could. But whether or not that happens, we'll have to wait and see. So, there's that part of it. Other breaking news. that we're keeping our eye on. Pete Crow Armstrong. Is 4 for 4 tonight. He's a single away from the cycle in the game against the Colorado Rockies, in which the Cubs just had the bases loaded with one out and didn't do anything. Yeah, Reagan, I agree with you. With the quarterback class being as weak as it was, he absolutely would have probably gotten drafted. I agree. I agree wholeheartedly with you. So, Pete Crow Armstrong has a double, a triple, a homer, and he has knocked in one run tonight. He led the game off with the home run, and he's now hitting .277. He's starting to heat up right when the Cubs need him the most. Bregman starting to heat up. Michael Busch, not so much. Busch is okay at .252. Seiya Suzuki struggled tonight. Ian Happ is just not good. Ian Happ is just not good right now. Nico Horner is in a bit of a funk. Moises Ballesteros is in a funk. Matt Shaw just recalled. First game back. He's 2 for 3 tonight. Dansby Swanson, 0 for 3. Now, let's just talk about this. Dansby Swanson is making an absolutely absurd amount of money. An absurd amount of money for the Cubs. And the Cubs are batting him at the bottom of the order, where he's batting an atrocious, and his lines are 176, his OBP is 280, and his slugging is 308. The Cubs need to unload Dansby Swanson. It's an unpopular take. I get it. I understand it. But his offense is costing you right now. On top of that, you have a second baseman in Nico Horner that is a natural shortstop. You also have, tonight, a right fielder in Matt Shaw, who is also a natural shortstop. You put those two in any combination, Horner at short, Shaw at second, Shaw at short, Horner at second, your defense doesn't miss a beat. Your offense gets better. Nico has been the Cubs' most consistent hitter for the last 2 years. There's no question about that. But I will tell you this right here and now. If the Cubs at the deadline do not find a trade partner with or for Dansby Swanson, they're not going to make the playoffs. And right now they're struggling. Look, I know they're in third place, and there's a very good chance that they will not make the playoffs currently. Now, there's plenty of time left. I understand that. And as a Cubs fan, I'm eternally optimistic. However, I also have to be realistic. Dustin Kelly, their hitting coach, has messed up so many different swings within the organization, including Dansby Swanson's, that Dustin Kelly needs to go. And I've said it now for over a year. Kelly is a big issue right now. And until the Cubs recognize that, more importantly, until Craig Counsell recognizes that, then it's going to be an issue. It will absolutely be an issue. Shota Imanaga was on the hill tonight for the Cubs. And Shota was back to throwing strikes. 5 2/3, 5 hits, 1 run, 3 strikeouts, 1 walk, over 85 pitches. Now, I will tell you right here and now, that is a good night for Shota Imanaga. And in fact, the Cubs would take that every day of the week and twice on Sunday. That's what they're looking for out of Shota. That's the Shota Imanaga that they got from Japan. And that his first year in the league was as dominant of a left-hander as there was. Made the All-Star team his rookie year in the majors. He has been absolutely brilliant this season for the Cubs, who lost the option with him. He picked up the player option. The Cubs weren't going to sign him. They were not going to bring him back, and he wanted to come back. And look, he's been one of the best, or not best, one of the better pitchers on that staff. Cubs need some help. Cubs need some help pitching. And I know John Heyman has stated that Tarek Skubal is available and that the Cubs should look into it and that he expects the Cubs to be, for lack of a better term, aggressive. I will just say this much. I don't want the Cubs to give up Jackson Wiggins if they can avoid it. If they can avoid giving up Jackson Wiggins, that's a good thing. However, if the Cubs have to give up Wiggins, you better be sure you can sign Skubal to a long-term extension. You have to be able to do that if you're the Cubs. If you can do that with them, with Skubal, then you give up whoever you need to. Minus Pete Crow Armstrong. Minus Pete Crow Armstrong, I don't think you give up Nico or Matt Shaw. Maybe a single A or a double A prospect, or maybe even a triple A prospect. But not Wiggins. You could realistically get rid of Shaw if you wanted to. If you felt like you could get something good and get Tarek Skubal, reigning back-to-back Cy Young Award winner from the American League, if you could get him for Matt Shaw, if you have to give up Wiggins, fine, but make sure you can sign Skubal. That becomes the priority then. Because then you're looking at an absolutely dominant rotation. You won't have to sign Imanaga again. And just like that, the Rockies have taken the lead. A 3-run home run, and the Imanaga gem is now wasted. And the Cubs now find themselves trailing 4-2 after Caleb Thielbar, who has been mediocre at best this season for the Cubs, has just now given up a long ball. And look, it might not be a popular opinion, but the way your pitching staff has imploded with injuries, the way your offense has struggled, you may need a full reset here on the coaching staff, including Craig Counsell. If Counsell is stubborn enough not to want to fire Tommy Hotovy or not want to fire Dustin Kelly, the problem here then is Craig Counsell. The other factor in all this is Jed Hoyer. Jed Hoyer has built this roster. They have not spent the money like they should. And we've talked about this. They're spending money like a mid-market team. They're not playing with the big boys. They're just not. They're not keeping up with the Dodgers. They're not developing their own young talent. And I'm sorry, Miguel Amaya as your catcher, not good. You haven't had a good backstop since Wilson Contreras. Let's just call it what it is. Contreras was the best catcher you've had in the last 25 years, maybe? I mean, let's just call it how we see it. The Cubs finally have defense up the middle. They finally have a center fielder that is the face of the franchise. You have a first baseman that has averaged, 25 home runs the last 2 years. Plays really good defense. Can hit the ball out of the ballpark. And you don't have a catcher. You have an aging left fielder who I think is overpaid. Not underappreciated, because I believe he will go down in Cubs folklore. He's the last remaining piece from the Joe Madden squad. So, and you don't have a right fielder. Right now you have a shortstop playing right field for the Cubs. And that's just bad. That's bad business. So Jed Hoyer as well is just as much on the hook for this as Craig Counsell, Dustin Kelly, Tommy Hotovy, and their training staff. Pete Crow Armstrong did hit for the cycle. I do apologize. He did hit for the cycle. Yet the Cubs are down 4-2. Bases loaded. They had the bases loaded in the bottom of the 7th, and they didn't cash in with one out. And they didn't cash in. Victor Vodnik on now for the Rockies. Right-handed pitcher. I've always liked the Rocky uniforms. I'm not going to lie. The purple and black I think goes well together. Miguel Amaya is leading off. No, correction. Pedro Ramirez now leading off. He's another young, up-and-coming prospect for the Cubs that they've called up. But again, their farm system is not what it was. Their farm system is not really anything to write home about now. You've called up Shaw. You've called up PCA, Cade Horton. The only one that hasn't come up is Jackson Wiggins. Why that is, I can't tell you. But if you're the Cubs right now, that's a problem. Ramirez gets on with a base hit. He continues to swing the bat well. I had somebody yesterday, listener of the show, reach out and say, "Hey, who do you think the Dodgers play in the World Series?" And I said, that's a bit presumptuous to think the Dodgers are going to get there. But it got me thinking. Who do I think would play the Dodgers? And it got me wondering, well, what's the AL look like right now? I mean, I know the Yankees are solid, but they always put up good regular season numbers. Let's call that what it is. The White Sox are back in first at 38-32. They are a fun, young team that are playing without Murakami, who has been their best hitter most of the year, besides Colson Montgomery, Chase Meadroth. The Southsiders have something there. A no-name pitching staff, really. But are they ahead of schedule? Absolutely they are. But I don't think they're going to be there at the end. Tampa Bay, I think, is a very good possibility. They're a game back of the Yankees. Seattle is back over 500 and getting Cal Teo back. The Sacramento, Vegas Athletics, whatever you want to call them, they're a game back in the AL West. They're a game under 500. So I think the American League is wide open. I mean, let's call it what it is here. You've got the Yankees, the Rays, and then everybody else. Could the White Sox really pose a threat? I mean, they could, I guess. I mean, if they get Murakami back and then Kyle Teo comes around for them, I mean, look, they've played all season without him. Benintendi has been good. But again, you have young guys that are realistically, Austin Hayes is out, Murakami's still out, Kyle Teel is still out, and he's your bread and butter in terms of your catching prospect. He's the one that everybody has their eye on, and rightfully so. He'll start a minor league rehab assignment with AAA Charlotte. That's per Sox Machine. And that's a good sign for the Sox. That means he's getting closer to coming back. Murakami should be close too. I mean, he should be close, but look, they're doing this without their best players. That's the thing about the White Sox right now. And that's, truthfully, that's one of the things. I mean, you look at their starting pitching. I mean, their starting pitching isn't anything to write home about. Sean Burke, Eric Fields, Anthony Kay, Davis Martin, Joe Rock. I mean, that's not anything good. I'm not good, but it's not anything, you don't write home about it. You don't fear those guys. Okay, so Pete Crow Armstrong hit for the cycle last inning. Home run, triple, double, single. So he hit the reverse cycle. He's coming up with runners at first and second for the Cubs. They're down 2. If there's ever a time for the MVP of the Cubs to step up, it's right here and now. There's 1 out. Colorado is talking about how they want to pitch to PCA. So with that, we're going to take a quick timeout. We're going to hear from our friends at I Know a Guy Remodeling, and then we will be right back, right here on the Last Row Podcast. Let me ask you this question. When your favorite team is struggling, like the Cubs, what's the first thing you say? Well, something's got to change. Well, if you've been walking through your house thinking the exact same thing every time you see that old bathroom, that outdated kitchen, the unfinished space, maybe this is your sign. Our friends at I Know a Guy Remodeling can help turn your home from rebuild mode into contender status. From kitchens and bathrooms to flooring, drywall, renovation projects, landscaping, big or small. They do quality work and actually care about making sure it's done right the first time. And as someone who values people you can trust, that matters. So if you're ready to stop talking about it and finally make the move, make sure you check out a link to their Facebook page on our website, www.lastrowpodcast.com. Because championship teams and championships homes are built the right way. Because everybody deserves to know a guy. And now you do. I know a guy remodeling. All right, Pete Crow Armstrong is up. Welcome back to the show. 1-1 the count. Wild pitch. Runners move to second and third. I wonder now if this will call or if the Rockies will then intentionally walk Pete Crow Armstrong. That would be the smart thing to do, to then set up a force at any base. Pete Crow Armstrong tonight, the first reverse cycle in Cubs franchise history. They are going to pitch to him. That's a surprise to me. Pete Crow Armstrong fouls the next pitch back. 2-2 the count. 1 out. Runners on second and third. Bottom of the eighth. Cubs are down by 2, 4-2. Timeout has been called. PCA taking some deep breaths as he steps out of the batter's box. Cub fans in attendance at Wrigley on their feet, chanting PCA. He knows the magnitude of the moment. Swung on. Hit down the line. Caught. That will at least get a run in. So PCA drives in another run. It's now 4-3. He smashed that ball. Freeman out in right field made a very good catch for the Rockies. PCA just missed tying this game up. Good sliding catch there by Freeman on a ball that was dipping away from him. Really nice play. PCA thought he had something, but he did get the run in. Reagan, good evening. Alex Bregman, 2 for 4 on the night. Could use a big hit here. And Bregman he's been okay for the Cubs. He's typically a second half guy. But I will say this much, he's solidified third base. He's been good at third base for them. He's given them consistency down there. 3-0 the count. Not happy with the call is Vodnik. Bregman now waiting in the box. Surely will take this. And it's ball 4. Vodnik can't find the strike zone right now. Cubs again. Runners on first and second. Michael Busch coming up. That's going to do it for Vodnik. Cubs are threatening to tie the game. They've got a runner in scoring position here in the bottom of the 8th. So Pete Crow Armstrong hits for the cycle. First reverse cycle in Cubs history. It's a big deal. Speaking of big deals, let's talk here. The Chicago Bulls. We thought maybe it might happen today. And it surely has. The Chicago Bulls have made their next head coach known to the world. The Bulls have hired Thiago Splitter, former coach of the Portland Trailblazers, who, quite honestly, was put into a unwinnable situation last year. If you recall, Tiago Splitter was the assistant coach with the Portland Trailblazers when Chauncey Billups was arrested and removed from his post as Blazers head coach due to his involvement in the federal investigation. So, Tiago Splitter steps in. And what does Tiago Splitter do? Well, he takes over a team that, quite honestly, was in a, I mean, let's just call it what it is, a really bad situation. Okay? He's got experience as a head coach in the NBA. He took on that job in October, early enough in the year. Battled obstacles and tests that most coaches have never had to face at any level. Rafiki, good evening. Cody, good evening. He became an assistant with the Nets after retiring from the NBA after winning an NBA title with the San Antonio Spurs. He was thrust into the head coaching position in Portland after Chauncey Billups was arrested with that federal investigation. Very quick update. Mahia in for the Rockies. Michael Busch at the plate, down 0-2, 2 outs. Cubs have runners on first and second. Down 1, 4-3. Wind up and the pitch. Taken low by Busch. Good eye. Splitter refocused a very young team to get into the Western Conference play-in, where they stunned Phoenix to become a playoff team. Now, the Trailblazers in the season, and Busch strikes out, stranding runners. The Cubs are now 1 for 16 with runners in scoring position tonight. Back to the other news of the night, which is Tiago Splitter with the Chicago Bulls, now their 25th head coach in NBA history. This is per Joe Cowley of the Chicago Sun-Times. The Trailblazers were flirting with keeping the Brazilian-born Tiago Splitter, but a source told the Sun-Times last week they had also made offers to other coaches. Their loss is now Chicago's gain. Bryson Graham, president of basketball operations, is the one that made the hire. Look at that, right on time. We're talking about the Bulls hire, and it's like it's fate. It's kismet. He just knows when to show up. Monty, good evening. I was waiting. I thought, I'm not going to lead the show off with it. Monty tends to show up a little bit later. I'll wait. And then we're talking about the Bulls making their hire today of Tiago. And here we go. Yes, and Reagan, you are correct. The Blazers' business was definitely closed while they waited on the Kane series. You're right. No doubt. I also believe, though, that what Dundon has done has made really bad business decisions for the Blazers. Because they, for lack of a better term, they screwed Tiago Splitter out of his job. They made massive cuts throughout the entire franchise, firing people that had been, for lack of a better term, lifers with them, NBA lifers, in an effort to cut costs. So now, Tiago Splitter becomes the 25th head coach in Chicago Bulls history. And what does he bring? Well, he brings a wealth of knowledge. And look, to be quite honest with you, the Trailblazers finished 42-40 last season. Okay? He's also a player's development type of guy. The Bulls have the 4th and currently the 15th pick. Now, there are rumblings. I'm not going to deny it, and I will tell you this. There are rumblings that are talking that the Bulls are trying to actively move up to get back in the top 10. Look, and if they do make that move, it's going to be to try to get Keaton Vogler, the guard out of Illinois, because they view him as one of the best guards in this draft class. Obviously, they're looking at Caleb Wilson as their number 4 pick. Unless something incredible happens and Wilson gets picked second, Boozer then might fall. You know, there's a number of different things that could happen. But the Bulls are looking at number 4 and number 15 currently. They're going to get an infusion of new talent. The Bulls have the most salary cap to spend this offseason if they choose to add talent in that regard. And I believe they will. But I don't believe it's going to be necessarily the usual, big name free agents. I think you're going to see them be a little bit more selective based upon now what Tiago Splitter wants. And it's going to be interesting to see what he does with a full season as the head coach with undeniably a really good, you've got a really good number 3 in Modest Buzelis, your small forward, who's a point guard in a forward's body. You've got Noah Essingay, their pick from a year ago, who's a 7-footer that's like a stretch 5, like a Victor Wembanyama. Now, I'm not comparing him to Victor Wembanyama. So before I get any type of, nefarious, comments, just understand he's like, size-wise, body type, he's like a Wembanyama in that regard. He was on the Windy City Bulls, averaged almost 30 points a game when he played before his injury. Bryson Graham is expected to draft the best player available, but has emphasized that the Bulls want to get back to a strong defensive mindset. In Splitter's last 51 regular season games, the Blazers were 30-21 and in the top 10 in the NBA defensively. This is a very young head coach who was with the Spurs during their glory years. He's 6'11". He's the second tallest coach in NBA in the Chicago Bulls history, behind only Bill Cartwright, former Chicago Bull champion with the first three-peat. Oh my God. Not to break in here, but Daniel Palencia for the Cubs, relief pitcher, their closer, has just called Craig Counsell out, and it looks like the trainer. Something is wrong. Something is wrong with Daniel Palencia. Looks like he's okay. Maybe. Unless if it was just a mound visit, maybe. Okay. Yeah, Splitter was a player at a high level. Absolutely. And as soon as he retired, or from playing, he was thrust into a coaching role with the Nets in 2019. He then worked his way to the Portland Trail Blazers in 2025, going to be an assistant for Chauncey Billups. And then Billups was arrested. Now the Bulls have their new head coach. So he comes from Portland. The Bulls get the pick from Portland. And now you have a great opportunity here to see exactly what you're going to do here next week. The draft is a week from tonight. Or a week from tomorrow night, excuse me. So Tiago Splitter, I know I said last night I didn't put him at the top of my list. You had Mike Inori, Ryan Schmidt, Splitter, and Unseld Jr. My preference was Schmidt, Nori, and Splitter in that order. But this is a very good hire by the Bulls. I like it. Micah Nori would have been a safe hire. Ryan Schmidt may have been an outside-the-box hire. But Tiago Splitter has shown he can win at various levels. Look, he's also coached in the EuroLeagues. Monty asked the question in the chat, who do the Bulls trade to move up from 15? Well, I mean, I think, look, you could package a couple of picks. You could also package a couple players. You could look at maybe Josh Giddey for one. I don't know necessarily. Look, if they want to get back to defense, Josh Giddey doesn't fit that mold. Josh Giddey is not a good defender for the Bulls. Pretty much, Reagan, you're not wrong. Anybody but Matas Buzelis. So, you might look at Trey Jones. You might look at Josh Giddey. Patrick Williams, I'm sure they would get rid of in a heartbeat. If they could pay somebody to take Patrick Williams, I think they would. But I believe that they've got some trade chips that they could use. And Ricky O'Donnell, the writer over at SB Nation, does a great job on the NBA. Wrote on this today. Calls this a B hire. Okay? So not an A hire, but a B hire, okay? But he says he's 41. He was a member of the Spurs' 2014 championship team and moved into coaching directly after. He then worked with the Brooklyn Nets from 19 to 23, spent a season in Houston, and then went to Portland. He was also a head coach at Paris Basketball, where he led his team to a French Cup championship and qualified for the EuroLeague playoffs. He left Paris Basketball after one season to take a job on Billups' staff in Portland. So, Splitter is inheriting a very talented young roster. I'm going to take that back. You've got a couple pieces on there that are really good. I think Matas Buzelis is very, very good. I think he's what you're building around. Now, if you put him at the 3, you put Caleb Wilson, not Williams, but Caleb Wilson at the 4. You could get a center in free agency. You could look at Noah Essengay. You could look at, other options at your center position. But quite honestly, Jalen Smith had a good year as a hybrid big man, but he's not going to be your answer. So if you can get back into the top 10 by trading Josh Giddey, maybe Patrick Williams, to a team that's looking for a veteran guard and a bench player at maybe a 3 or a 4, okay? You could absolutely then get back in the top 10 and realistically get close enough to get Keaton Vogler. And, Monty, I agree with you on both statements. Splitter learned a ton from Greg Popovich. Learned a ton during his playing career. Now, the Bulls have reportedly asked finalist Wes Unseld Jr. to be a part of the coaching staff to assist with the transition, which is a smart move by the Bulls. Not a bad move at all. Ultimately, I would love for them, and I'm speculating. I would absolutely love for them to bring in a defensive coordinator to help Splitter, and I would bring in Tom Thibodeau. You all know how I feel about Thibs. I would bring Thibodeau in as an assistant in a heartbeat. In an absolute heartbeat. They were very good. Under Splitter, they finished 20th in offensive efficiency, 14th in defensive efficiency. They did turn the ball over more than anybody, but that was due to talent more than scheme. Portland was number 2 in offensive rebounding percentage, and it finished 7th overall in turnover percentage, meaning on defense, turning the ball over, getting the offense to turn the ball over. So, I believe that, I believe that Splitter is inheriting a really good Modest Buzelis, a guy you could absolutely build around. He would be your 3. You've got to get a guard in the draft. I think you've got to get a guard or you've got to get a big man. If you don't move from 15, you've got to get a big man. You have to. I also then feel like if you don't get a guard, if you don't trade up and get a guard in the first round, then you got to look at your second round picks. Look, you've got a number of picks. Okay? Number of different picks here. And they have no shortage of them coming in to this draft next week. They've got 4 and 15 in the first, and then 38 and 56. So those are not bad picks. You could reshape your roster right away. You could reshape your roster right away. Plus you have $60 million in salary cap space. Real quick update here. The Cubs, once again, are threatening. Ian Happ bounced into what would have been a game-ending double play. But Mejia for the Rockies, their closer, threw the ball into center field on the double play attempt, allowing the runner, Seiya Suzuki, who reached on a walk, to go to third. Happ is on first. I'm sorry, I sit corrected. No outs. No outs currently. Runners on first and third. Nobody out. Nico Horner coming to the plate. So, again, it'll be very interesting to see how Bryson Graham and Thiago Splitter work together. And per report, Splitter was in Chicago over the weekend. I didn't want to report it until he became hired. But per reports, he was in Chicago over the weekend. And Monty, that's also correct in your astute observation there. They could also take on an expiring contract to help move up. And I think they probably will. I think they're going to have to. Mejia comes up and in on Horner. He cannot find the strike zone right now. So they need a rim protector. They need a lot of shooting. I don't like Josh Giddey. I've said that before. He's a fine player, but he's not what you need. You need a true point guard, a guy that can play two ways, can defend, can shoot the ball, can distribute. That's not Josh Giddey. Giddey can distribute. He can't defend. He's another Zach LaVine. Now, look, I've heard other people on other podcasts say, they don't like what the Bulls are doing and that the Bulls, had, a good thing with, DeRozan and LaVine and Ball and Vucevic. Yeah, they had a good thing for 4 months. Then when Lonzo Ball got hurt, it all went down the toilet because none of the other three played defense. LaVine's not good on defense. DeRozan, Vucevic, not good defensively. And that's why you saw them get into the play-in. The Bulls, for the first 3 months of the NBA season, during Billy Donovan's first year here, were the best team in basketball because they were good defensively thanks to Lonzo Ball, and they were good offensively thanks to Lonzo Ball. When Lonzo Ball went down, guess what? So did the Bulls' chances. And thus, that's what's happened. Okay, real quick. Cubs have bases loaded in the ninth. Nobody out. Pitching change is happening. Mejia is not happy. Neither is the Colorado manager. Just to finish up here on Thiago Splitter. I am very excited for what the Bulls have the opportunity here to do and to get. Okay? I believe that this team is set to enter a time period where they're not going to be the best in the East. We know that. And we know how good the East is right now. Okay? How wide open it is. Let's be honest. Cleveland made the conference finals. The Knicks are your NBA champs. Detroit's going to be good. Indy's going to be good. Washington is looking at coming back. I don't think they will, but so overall, the Bulls have to, be prepped to understand that, look, this is you're not going to turn it around in 1 year. But can you get the foundational pieces to do so? Absolutely. With number 4, number 15, 38, and 56 in this year's draft, there is absolutely zero reason why you can't get 4 players that would be on your roster. I don't think we're going to see the draft and stash like we saw with Arturas Karnisovas with Chicago. I don't believe you're going to see that. I believe Bryson Graham is going to go out and get guys that are going to be in play to be on the roster. I don't think you're going to see them be on the Windy City Bulls. I just don't. And if by chance that happens, then you know what? It happens. But I don't believe that the Bulls are that far away. I just don't. Especially if they get rid of Patrick Williams and they move up in the draft to get a player of need at the guard position. Pedro Ramirez, the rookie, second baseman, is up. Bases loaded. 0-1 the count. Halverson on the mound for the Rockies. 1-1 the count. Very good eye. Very good eye here by Ramirez. 1-1 the count. Halverson, bulky right-handed pitcher, working from the stretch, winds up and pitches. Down low. 2-1. That pitch was at 100 miles an hour. Two and one the count. We're going to stick with this right here at this at bat. 3-1 the count. Good eye by the rookie. Halverson cannot find the strike zone. I'm very impressed so far by Pedro Ramirez. Very impressed by him so far. Base hit. 1 run is in. The Cubs will hold the runner at third. Ramirez comes up in the clutch. Way to go, Rook. 4-4. That ball was crushed off of his bat at 101.9 miles an hour. Great at bat from the rookie. Worked the count, got a pitch to hit, went the opposite way. Great job. Brings up Matt Shaw. Wrigley going bananas. Halverson misses high. So if we take a look, and we're going to bounce back and forth here between the Cubs and the Bulls. 2-0 to Shaw. Bases loaded. Cubs could win it here on a walk-off walk. Looking at some mock drafts, Matt Shaw just swung at ball 3. Looking at some mock drafts, I am interested in seeing what the Bulls would have to give up to get back into the top 10, because Keaton Wagler is most have him going number 5 overall to the Clippers. Shaw holds up. 3-1 the count. A walk wins it. A walk-off walk wins it for the Cubs. Matt Shaw's had a very good night coming back. He's 2 for 4. Winds up and the pitch. Ball 4. Cubs win. Cubs win. They win it in walk-off fashion. Great at-bat by Matt Shaw. Welcome back to the big leagues, Matt Shaw. The Cubs get a much-needed win. That is their 9th walk-off win this season, which leads the majors. Now, could the Bulls move up with the Kings or maybe Brooklyn? I don't think they would have enough with the Clippers. Maybe they would. I don't know. But I just have to wonder. I mean, I just have to wonder what they might do. Look, the draft being a week away, I am excited about it. I am curious what they will do. Lots of people have Wagler falling down to the Falcons at 8. The Bulls could make a trade with the Sacramento Kings. Could they take on Zach LaVine and then release him? Absolutely they could. That would actually be hysterical. But I would be okay with them moving up to 7 to get Wagler. Or if you've got to move up with the Clippers at 5, you do whatever you got to do. But I just feel that overall the Bulls have a great opportunity here to reshape their entire roster. They have a great opportunity to do that. And if they do it, I look, the East is not that far out of reach, in my opinion. There's going to be big turnover in Cleveland. There's going to be turnover in New York. There's going to be turnover in San Antonio. Look, De'Aaron Fox may become a cap casualty. So his leadership would be welcomed on the Bulls, especially with Modis. So if you got, Keaton Wagler, and then you bring in, De'Aaron Fox as your other guard, there's no reason why that wouldn't work. A point and a shooting guard, why not? Then you get Caleb Wilson at 4. Then you've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. You just need your 5. And then you can get your 5 either through free agency, or maybe you take on a contract, or maybe you draft one in the second round at number 38. So, again, there's a number of different things here that the Bulls could do. But the hiring of Thiago Splitter is the first thing. And kudos to Bryson Graham. He knew who he wanted. He wanted to see what happened in Portland. I'm a little bit surprised. A lot of people now, I will say this too, and a lot of things that I've been reading, a lot of people are souring on Sean Sweeney after seeing how bad the Spurs choked that away. And I'm not going to say that they're wrong. Not at all going to say that. In fact, watching the Spurs defense fall apart in the majority of those games, quite honestly, made me shift my focus. And I think that's what happened with the Bulls, too. I think they shifted their attention. And then when he got hired by Orlando, I thought, oh, boy. That's the guy that I wanted. And then we saw the collapse. Then we saw the collapse of the Spurs defensively, especially in the fourth quarter. Losing leads like that, that's not good. Especially on the biggest stage. And they did. And they had a rim protector who was 7'5", and they couldn't hold him off. Doesn't bode well for Orlando, in my opinion. But we will see what happens. And with the draft being next week, we're going to break it down here all week long on the Last Row podcast. And that's going to put a bow on this edition of the Last Row podcast. I want to thank our good friends over at I Know a Guy Remodeling and Forever Finds for their continued support of the program. We will be off tomorrow night unless major breaking news happens. We'll be back on Wednesday, the 17th. Because breaking news changes everything. And until next time,